demanded my fiancé's best friend, my sister, to wear a tux instead of a sexy dress to our wedding. Now the wedding is called off, his friends are mocking me, and everyone is saying I'm the villain. All right, Reddit, I've got a story that's going to make you question everything you think you know about family, friends, and weddings. So, my fiancé Jake and I have been together for 4 years. We got engaged last summer and everything seemed perfect. Our relationship was rock solid, and I couldn't wait to marry this guy. Jake is amazing. He's sweet, funny, and incredibly supportive. But there's one little hiccup in our otherwise flawless relationship. His best friend is my younger sister, Abby. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my sister. She's a blast to be around, and she's got this magnetic personality that everyone seems drawn to. But she's also a total flirt, and she's drop-dead gorgeous. Picture a younger, hotter version of Angelina Jolie. Yeah, it's that bad. And to make matters worse, she's always been super close to Jake. They were friends before we started dating, and they stayed tight even after Jake and I got serious. As the wedding planning kicked into high gear, I started feeling this nagging insecurity. Jake and Abby were spending a lot of time together, more than usual, even for them. They were constantly texting, meeting up for coffee, and even going on these little adventures together. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that they were just friends and I had nothing to worry about. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then came the bridesmaid dress fitting. Abby showed up in this ridiculously sexy dress that left nothing to the imagination. It was tight, low cut, and had a slit up the side that went all the way to her hip. I couldn't believe it. I mean, who shows up to their sister's wedding looking like that? I felt this surge of jealousy and anger that I just couldn't contain. I pulled Abby aside and asked her as calmly as I could to tone it down a bit. I suggested she wear something a little more modest, or even a tux, to avoid drawing attention away from me on my big day. But Abby just laughed it off, saying I was being ridiculous and that Jake wouldn't care what she wore. That really pissed me off. I mean, this was supposed to be my day, and she was acting like it was all about her. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I talked to Jake about it, expecting him to back me up. But instead, he just looked at me like I was crazy. He said Abby should wear whatever she felt comfortable in, and that I was being insecure for no reason. That hurt. I thought he'd understand, but he didn't. It was like he was choosing her over me. Things escalated from there. I couldn't let it go. Every time I saw Jake and Abby together, my blood boiled. I started nitpicking everything she did, convinced that she was trying to sabotage my wedding. I knew I had to do something drastic to get Jake to see things from my perspective. So I gave him an ultimatum. I told him that if Abby didn't wear a tux to the wedding, I couldn't go through with it. I know it sounds extreme, but I felt like I was fighting for my relationship. Jake looked stunned, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He said I was being unreasonable and that I was blowing things out of proportion. But I stood my ground. I needed him to choose me, to put our relationship first. Jake told me he needed time to think about it. He said he couldn't believe I was making him choose between me and his best friend. That hurt even more. I felt like I was losing him, like Abby was winning this twisted game. I cried myself to sleep that night, feeling more alone than ever. The next few days were a blur. Jake avoided me, spending even more time with Abby. I felt like I was going insane, watching them together, laughing, and having a great time while I was falling apart. I tried talking to my friends about it, but they all said the same thing. I was overreacting and needed to chill out. That just made me feel worse. Finally, Jake came to me with his decision. He said he couldn't ask Abby to change who she was just to make me feel better. He said he loved me, but he couldn't marry someone who didn't trust him or his best friend. He called off the wedding. I was devastated. My dream wedding was shattered, and I felt like I had lost everything. My family was in shock, and my friends were divided. Some supported me, saying Jake was being a jerk, while others thought I was the villain in this story. And to make matters worse, Jake's friends started mocking me online, calling me a bridezilla and saying I was jealous and insecure. Abby tried to talk to me, but I couldn't face her. I felt like she had won, like she had taken Jake away from me. I blocked her on social media and stopped answering her calls. I needed time to process everything, to figure out where I went wrong. I started seeing a therapist, hoping to get some clarity. She helped me see that my insecurities had gotten the best of me, that I had pushed Jake away with my jealousy and need for control. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. I still felt betrayed, like Jake had chosen Abby over me. I started to isolate myself, avoiding social gatherings and sinking deeper into my own misery. I couldn't escape the feeling that everyone was talking about me, judging me for what had happened. Even my own family seemed to be siding with Abby, saying I had overreacted and ruined my own wedding. Then, one day, I got a message from Jake. He said he missed me and wanted to talk. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe there was still a chance to fix things, to salvage our relationship. I agreed to meet him, hoping for a miracle. When we met, Jake looked different. He seemed sad, like he had been through the ringer too. We sat down and talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. He said he still loved me, but he couldn't understand why I had turned on Abby the way I did. He said it felt like I was trying to control everything, and it scared him. I tried to explain my side of things, how I felt threatened by Abby's closeness to him, and how her dress made me feel. But Jake just shook his head. He said he loved me for who I was, not for who I tried to be when I was jealous and insecure. He said he wanted to be with someone who trusted him, who didn't feel the need to control his friendships. That hit me hard. I realized that my actions had driven a wedge between us, that I had let my insecurities ruin everything. I apologized, tears streaming down my face, but Jake just looked at me sadly. He said he needed time to think, to figure out if he could move past this. As we parted ways, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for us. But deep down, I knew things would never be the same. The weeks that followed were tough. I tried to focus on myself, to work through my insecurities and become a better person. I reconnected with my friends and family, trying to mend the bridges I had burned. But the shadow of what had happened hung over me like a dark cloud. Jake and I stayed in touch, but it was clear things were different. We were both trying to move on, but it was hard. Every time I saw a photo of him with Abby, my heart ached. I couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if I had handled things better. One day, I got a call from Abby. She wanted to meet up and talk. I hesitated, but I knew I needed to face her, to try and make things right. When we met, she looked just as sad and worn out as I felt. She apologized for everything, saying she never meant to come between Jake and me. She said she loved us both and wanted us to be happy. We talked for hours, airing out all our grievances and misunderstandings. It was tough, but it felt cathartic. By the end of it, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. We hugged, promising to try and rebuild our relationship. Jake and I are still working through things. It's not easy, but we're taking it one day at a time. I'm learning to trust again, to let go of my need for control. And while our wedding may be called off, I haven't given up hope that we can find our way back to each other. So, Reddit, that's my story. I'm not proud of how I handled things, but I'm trying to learn from my mistakes. Maybe one day, I'll look back on all of this and see it as a turning point, a chance to grow and become a better person. But for now, I'm just trying to take it one step at a time.